Sounds like we're good to go, Hunter. Okay, great. Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the March 6th, 2025 Rider Experience and Operations Committee. I am Christina Walker, the chair of the RIO Committee, and I'd like to welcome everybody attending both in person and via Zoom. For board members joining via Zoom, please turn on your camera and state your name prior to making any comments or asking any questions so the public and your fellow committee members know who is speaking. Hunter, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Angela Burney.
Here.
Board member Burney is present. Christine Frizzell.
Present.
Board member Frizzell is present. Hunter George.
Here.
Board member George is present. Ed Prince.
Here.
Vice Chair Prince is present. Deshaun Quinn.
Here.
Board member Quinn is present. Pete von Reichbauer. Jeremiah Zafalai.
Present.
Board member Zafalai is present. And Christina Walker.
Here.
Madam Chair, a quorum is present at this time.
Great. Thank you so much, Hunter. All right. Just quickly, some notes under the report of the chair. I do want to welcome our two new committee members. We have a new committee member, Hunter George, a Fircrest City Council member and a Pierce board member, and Deshaun Quinn here in the room, our King County Council member and so King County board member here. Thank you for joining this committee. We'll keep you really busy. Thank you for doing this good work. We've got a lot of important stuff on this committee's agenda this year, so we're happy to have you. Before I hand things over to Geron for the CEO report, I just wanted to call attention to one of the main agenda items for today's meeting, and that is the staff report out on link reliability issues. This is going to be a long-term topic in the boardroom and especially at this committee, and for good reason. Passengers rightly expect a higher level of service and reliability than they have been getting. And today, this committee is going to hear a number of updates on the flurry of activity that has been occurring to improve operating performance. These will include some encouraging new data about recent improvements, detail some of the more medium and long-term challenges we face in order to truly bring operations up to the level we expect. I encourage members to lean in and ask questions of all the presenters later on in the meeting. And then thinking long-term, I want to ask that we all stay engaged on these issues and represent passengers and our communities as we seek to maximize the benefits of the investments our region is making in light rail. This certainly will not be the last time we hear about this topic, and we'll get a little update on that from staff today as well. We have both Sound Transit staff and Metro staff as part of the report. And I do want to thank our team at Metro for being here to be part of these updates today. With that, I will turn it over to Geron for the CEO report.
Thank you, Chair Walker. Good afternoon, members of the RIO Committee. As the Chair just described, we have an important presentation for you today, and I just want to add some additional commentary from me. This topic of ridership, of making sure that we have a system that functions for our customers, is a really important topic, and it's one that I remain highly focused on. And it's utmost importance not only to me, but to our leadership team, that we remain focused on the basic mission of the agency, which is providing a safe and reliable service to our passengers. Moises Gutierrez and Russ Arnold will speak to this topic, and I'm, just like the committee chair acknowledged, very pleased that Rail Division Director Evan Inkster is also here today to help provide this update later in the meeting. One additional item that I want to touch on is that we are in the process of updating the Intergovernmental Agreement, IGA, with our partners at King County Metro. This is the agreement whereby we delegate to King County Metro, or the Rail Division, which Evan is a very key leader on, to actually operate and maintain our Link Light Rail system. That agreement is a 2-year agreement. It expires late this year, and we plan to bring back to the board, to the committee, hopefully next month, an update on where we are in the process of updating our IGA agreement. So more to come on that. One final comment I want to touch on today is a totally different topic. That I'm excited to announce that Sound Transit, along with our regional transit agency partners, are joining the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Program. The Sunflower Program is designed to educate organizations and their staff on recognizing and supporting individuals with non-visible disabilities. Staff training on this program launched last week. The way it works is that individuals in this program wear a discrete lanyard with the sunflower signal that lets our staff know that this customer may need some additional assistance, and therefore we're able to step up and provide that additional assistance. I'm actually very proud that we are participating in this program to understand, to expand understanding of hidden disabilities, and thus reduce access barriers and support all the folks, all our customers who use our Link Light Rail, Express Bus, and Sounder system. And that completes my comments. So I'll hand it back to you, Chair Walker. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jeroen. Any questions for our CEO from the committee? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to move us on to public comment. The Rider Experience and Operations Committee welcomes public comment as an important part of the public process. Comments are received and considered by the committee in its deliberations. Hunter, what types of comments have we received for today's meeting?
Madam Chair, we have received no public comments of any kind for today's.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to pause just for a moment to see if anyone in the room did not sign up but was here intending to comment. And if not, we will close that part of our agenda and move on. We are going to start today with a closed session. The committee will go into closed session to discuss the strategy or position to be taken by the governing body during the course of any collective bargaining, which is exempt from the Public Open Meetings Act, as per RCW 42.30.144B. Our senior legal counsel, Noah Williams, is here to tell us the specific RCW that authorized us to conduct this discussion in closed session.
Thank you. Push. There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Walker. And you did cite the RCW correctly. The closed session is authorized pursuant to RCW 42.30.144B to discuss collective bargaining negotiations.
Great. Thank you, Noah. And we expect this closed session to last 15 minutes. The closed session will be held in another virtual meeting. So board members, you have received a link to that meeting in a separate email. Board members will exit this meeting to participate in the closed session, then we'll return to this Zoom event to resume the meeting when the full closed session is over. For those of us in person, we will be moving, I believe, across the hall, correct? Or right behind us. Okay. We stand in recess in closed session.
The Rider Experience and Operations Committee is still in recess. We anticipate meeting to reconvene at 1:34 p.m.
We ready? Okay. Welcome back. We are going to move into our business items. We have 2 business items on today's agenda, one for final approval and one for recommendation to the board. The first one, as always, is our meeting minutes. So this is the February 6th, 2025 Rio Committee meeting minutes, and I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Madam Chair, so moved.
And I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Now moving on to our one item that is a recommendation to the board, and we have John Buford, our labor director, here to provide the presentation on the labor agreement for our passenger information coordinator team.
Good afternoon, Chair Walker and members of the committee. My name is Chris Elwell, and I am the Executive Director of the Labor and Workforce Development Division here at Sound Transit. I am joined this afternoon by John Buford, Director of Labor, and Michelle Kovacs, Principal HR Business Partner. John and Michelle served as our primary negotiators for this agreement. We are here to brief you on the negotiations that recently concluded between Sound Transit and Protect 17 on a new collectively bargained agreement covering the Passenger Information Coordinators, or PICs, as we refer to them. The PICs are responsible for receiving multiple operational inputs from sources like IT, communications, service planning, and link controllers, and then act as the single point of real-time outward communication to the traveling public, providing information via text messages, email, and our PIM system. The PIC team operates 21 hours a day, 7 days a week. At the end of our brief verbal presentation, there is a proposed motion, and we are seeking a due pass recommendation to the full board authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to execute this labor agreement. I will now hand the presentation over to John and Michelle.
Thank you, Chris, and good afternoon. The term of this initial agreement will begin on the date of full execution, but no sooner than April 1st of 2025 and expire December 31st of 2027. Thereafter, the agreement will be renegotiated. This agreement covers 8 PICs and 2 senior PICs. A rate of pay table was bargained for the PICs and senior PICs. And that table restructures wages to a tiered 7-step scale based on years of employment in the role, in their role. The scale begins at the start of employment with steps following at 6 months, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 years. On February 1st of 2026, both classifications will receive a 3% annual wage increase. And on February 1st of 2027, they will again receive a 3% annual wage increase. Employees receive a 2% wage increase when they advance to each step based on their years of employment. The senior picks will receive an equivalent of 8% wage premium. 6 employees will see an average 11.7% wage increase to bring their wage up to the current market rate in the pay period following contract execution. 4 employees currently earn a wage rate that is above the step that corresponds to their years of employment on the rate of pay table. These individuals will not receive an increase in their wage rate. They will instead receive a top of scale retention award until their wage rate falls within the established rate of pay on the table. Top of scale retention award amounts are $4,000 in 2025, $4,500 in 2026, and $5,000 in 2027. These amounts were bargained as an equivalent to the annual wage increase that the others would receive. And I'll turn it over to Michelle for the rest.
Thank you, John. Additional key features of the agreement include a one-time lump sum $5,000 retention bonus for picks or senior picks when they reach 8 or 15 years of aggregate employment. No employees will be eligible to receive the retention bonus during the term of this particular agreement. During weeks with a holiday, if there is no operational ability to switch to an 8-hour, 5-day work week, employees working a mandatory 4-day, 10-hour schedule receive 10 hours of holiday pay. Employees will be enrolled in Sound Transit standard leave and benefit plans and will be subject to Sound Transit policies unless otherwise modified by the agreement. The labor agreement will be funded out of the Passenger Experience Department's salaries and benefits budget, and this action does not impact affordability of the agency's financial plan, as the positions are already incorporated in the annual operating plan. And this concludes our presentation, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, team. We'll ask for questions for staff first before we read it into the record. What questions do my committee colleagues have? Okay, it looks like you covered it all. Hunter, can you read the action into the record?
Motion number M 2025-12, a motion of the Board of the Central Puget Sound Regional Transit Authority authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to execute a 3-year labor agreement with Protec 17 covering passenger information coordinators.
Great, thank you. And I will now entertain a motion to forward this to the full board with a due pass recommendation.
Madam Chair Prince, so moved.
This is Bernie, I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or final questions, comments on this? All right, seeing none, we can do a voice vote for this. So all in favor of forwarding motion number M 2025-12 to the board with a due pass recommendation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to move on to reports to the committee. And as mentioned at the top of this meeting, I think a lot of folks have been waiting for this presentation, and that is our Operations Resiliency Study update. I'm going to start by calling on Moises Gutierrez, our Agency Oversight Deputy CEO, to start the presentation. And Moises, you'll introduce any additional presenters. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Walker and members of the committee. Again, my name is Moises Gutierrez. I serve as a Deputy CEO for Agency Oversight, and I'm here today with Russ Arnold. He's a Deputy CEO for Service Delivery, and Evan Inkster. He's King County Metro's Rail Division Director. Next slide, please. Today, we have an update on our efforts to improve both the reliability and the resiliency of Link service. This update follows what we presented to this committee last December in 2024. Our presentation is split into sections. So first, Russ will define the challenges and recap our timeline, the operating partnership with King County, and the technical systems landscape. Evan then will share some good news of recent progress to improve some challenges. And then I will cover additional recent improvements and unpack what the third-party consultant report recommended for future improvements, some of which are already underway. Before moving on, I will state again that the lack of resiliency in our light rail system has become increasingly apparent. In particular, recent service openings have revealed systemic stresses and weaknesses. If we did not comprehensively address these issues, we would expect subsequent openings to further stress the system and increase both the frequency and severity of service disruptions. But we cannot and will not allow that to happen. All the efforts we'll be walking you through today are to ensure our operations are reliable, resilient, and meeting the level of service that our riders expect. We expect to keep using this Rio forum, with your concurrence, to keep you updated on our progress to address this in the long term. And with that, I'll hand it over to Russ. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Moises, and members of the committee. The insights and work ahead that we will outline today align to the core concepts of service delivery, reliability, and resiliency. By reliability, we mean the predictability of service for passengers, i.e., does the train show up when we told you it would show up? There are multiple factors that come into reliability or affect reliability. One is trip delivery, or do the amount of trains that are scheduled go out into service as scheduled. Another metric is on-time performance, or how many trains arrive within a certain tolerance window of their published schedule. It's the most fundamental feature of good service and answers the question of whether passengers can be confident that their train will arrive and they can go where and when they expect. Many things can influence these core aspects of reliability. Many of these things are within our control, such as mechanical performance of our trains, having enough operators, traction power and communication systems operating as designed, and many external pressures can likewise affect reliability, such as a medical emergency or extreme cold or heat for an object unexpectedly blocking the tracks. By contrast, when we talk about system resiliency, we're looking at the ability of our transit system to withstand and respond to challenges. Sources of resiliency include our basic infrastructure, communication networks, rails, rail configurations, tunnels, and more. Resiliency means that these things are designed and maintained to withstand a wide variety of present and future challenges. We know that a quality system needs to always be thinking comprehensively about both reliability and resiliency to maximize the utility of the system we have and look for opportunities to proactively evolve to constantly improve. Next slide, please. When describing our recent operating performance, we have a complicated story to tell, but also an encouraging one. However, overall, our operations haven't been meeting our expectations or the level that passengers deserve. This was especially acute in the second half of 2024 and in the wake of new service openings last year, when we saw an increase in disruption frequency and severity. This slide shows actual data from a representative month, November, contrasted from earlier in the year. Now, I know there's a lot to absorb on this side, so let's start with the bar on the top left. First, you'll see the magenta goal line at the top left. This shows our trip delivery goal of 98.5%. This means that our minimum performance goal is that no more than one trip would be disrupted for every 65 that we operate. By contrast, the blue bars show our most recent finalized data from November 24, showing us falling considerably short of that goal. You can see the one line completed about 93% of trips and the two line about 96%, considerably short of the goal. Moving to the bullets in the middle of this slide, you can see that, put another way, this means that on the one line, rather than 1 in 65 trips being disrupted, about 1 in 14 trips didn't run as scheduled in November. On the two line, things are a bit better, but still below goal, with about 1 in 16 being disrupted. By comparison, in March of last year, before our two-line opening and one-line extension to Linwood, only about 1 in 30 trips were disrupted. Now, looking at the pie chart on the right, here you can see the proportion of disrupted trips in magenta out of the total scheduled in blue. So you'll also see here that in November, we had 675 disrupted trips, or roughly about 7%. There's an important caveat here with these numbers from a passenger experience perspective. When a train gets disrupted, we deploy gap trains to make up the difference. In November, we deployed 680 replacement trains, meaning that we actually operated 5 more trains than we had scheduled for the month. As a result, passengers are mostly not experiencing these issues as a raw loss of service, but more often as uneven and unpredictable service, with trains arriving close together or far apart, what we call bunching, as opposed to a reliable headway of a train every 8 or 10 minutes. Next slide, please. So now that we've gone through the challenges in this next section, I've got a few reminders and background. First, I'll quickly go over the timeline of recent and future work on the issues. Second, I'm going to briefly discuss the uniqueness of our business model and the partnership with Metro and how it informs our shared responsibilities to challenges. And third, I'll refresh our memories by outlining the basic systems required to run Link trains. Next slide, please. We showed this earlier version of this slide at the December Rio meeting, and CEO Sparman shared it as well at last month's Rio. I won't belabor each bar in detail here, but overall, here's what we've been up to since we last presented to you. At the top, you'll see that we intend to continue coming back to this committee and other forums to consistently update you and the public on this work. The light blue bar shows that the independent assessment process has wrapped up, which Moises will explain later on in this presentation. The series of dark blue bars shows areas of focus with the most known and acute problems, and that this work will continue into the spring. The middle dark blue bar shows our medium-term plans to improve overall resiliency by recalibrating a number of things such as maintenance and deep cleaning procedures. Finally, at the bottom, we have begun the process of identifying and prioritizing long-term solutions that will set us up for a more resilient system moving forward. That work will continue into next year. Next slide, please. In the background of all these issues is the unique way in which we and Metro operate linked together. We are the only agency in the country running trains this way, and this presents a number of unique benefits as well as challenges. Sound Transit contracts service to King County Metro for operations and maintenance, with some maintenance responsibilities retained by Sound Transit staff. King County Metro Rail operates the 1 and 2 line for Sound Transit through intergovernmental agreements, or IGAs. These IGAs are renegotiated every few years, and we are currently in the middle of a renegotiating period at present. This current IGA renegotiation process included a joint functional analysis to identify opportunities for structural, organizational, and performance efficiencies between our agencies. But at its most basic level, Sound Transit designs, plans, and funds Link Light Rail operations, and King County Metro delivers the service. Looking at major functions, Sound Transit manages security, fare compliance, passenger-facing wayfinding and signage, and service planning functions such as span and frequency of service. King County Metro generally hires, trains, and manages all operators, control center staff, and most maintenance personnel. Next slide, please. There's important local history as to why we and Metro have chosen to operate things this way for the past 16 years. Before Link opened, Sound Transit was a startup agency launching service in a mature transit environment, whereas Metro had immense operating expertise. Contracting out operations was the best way for a startup agency to focus on capital system expansion and hit the ground running by partnering with the largest transit agency in the state. Also, Link trains operated alongside buses in the downtown Seattle Transit Tunnel from 2009 to 2019. Metro built and owned the tunnel stations and had already operated it for 2 decades when Link service began. Lastly, Central Link trains also operated wholly within King County until last August when Lindenwood service began, so it's been a natural partnership for us. As the Link network continues to expand and increase in complexity, we have more work to do as we continue to evaluate our operating model and ensure that it continues to serve our shared goals, providing the best passenger experience. Next slide, please. Hopefully this slide looks familiar from our December discussion. Before we dive into technical improvements, we want to just briefly reorient again around how all the system components are connected to one another. So first, we can look at our traction power system. You'll see the black and green arrows represent electric power traveling from our regional power source to our traction power substations, or TPSSs, to the overhead concatenary system, or OCS, that power the trains down through the rails and returns current back to the TPSS. The blue arrow shows the communications network that manages information between train operators, the link control center, our stations, and passengers. And in tunnels, illustrated on the right, we have essential components like ventilation fans, alarms, and backup power sources. All these components must work together for trains to run safely, and these interdependencies are really key when it comes to understanding service reliability as well as system resiliency. So with this technical overview in mind, I'd like to hand things over to Evan to share with you some specific activities that we've recently completed.
Thanks, Russ. In December, you may recall, we talked with you about backup power, traction power substations, and signals being at the root of several unplanned service disruptions. ST and King County Rail have worked together to enhance response to power loss with faster deployment of crews and engineering support from ST for troubleshooting. ST has issued new standards for system changes that allow crews to safely and rapidly restore power after outages. We've also completed the track cleaning in the downtown Seattle Transit Tunnel to reduce electrical grounding caused by debris. ST and King County Rail have improved and are enhancing inspections of the OCS by using automated systems so defects can be identified before they result in service outage. Additionally, we've completed a backlog of OCS repairs with additional prioritized repairs scheduled for the coming months. King County crews have increased the inspecting and cleaning of the street running section switches to improve their reliability. We've also completed a backlog of track switch repairs, and we anticipate a series of additional repairs over the next few months. I'll turn it back to Moises.
Thank you, Evan, and thank you, Russ. Next slide, please. So there are a number of other areas of recent improvements that we do not have time to fully detail for you today, but we'll provide a quick overview. We have taken recent steps to improve clarity in roles and responsibilities, and critically, we've applied this clarity to the testing and startup phases of new extensions to ensure smoother transitions when bringing new service online. We've also set up a number of focused internal teams to again focus on key issue areas, such as the performance of our Series 2 light rail vehicles. One component of this has been King County training their operators on how to clear brake faults, which allows service to resume much more quickly in each individual case, while we simultaneously work to get to the root causes with the vehicle manufacturer, Siemens. We've also made significant improvements to our digital rider alerts, in-station audio announcements, and digital messaging, and we will work to continuously improve these going forward. We formalized our bus bridging work between Sound Transit and our bus partners by developing cohesive alternative service plans to support disruptions when they occur. And we are bringing security into passenger experience in order to create a much more unified passenger support system and more seamlessly and quickly address issues that passengers may face. Next slide, please. So the good news is we can report that all of these actions taken together are making a significant difference for the better. In December, you saw a graph similar to this showing 2024 year-to-date numbers from January through mid-November. It showed the main causes behind most of our unplanned disruptions, which were issues with LRVs, the train control system, and traction power, and the duration of those interruptions in hours for each. Now in magenta or pink, you can see some significant improvement from the time frame of November 1 through February 19th of this year. This is across all three categories, as you can see. On the middle and far right, you can see the massive improvement in reducing traction power and train control issues, roughly cutting those problems by half or more. On the left, you can see that the light rail vehicle issues are more persistent, but we have seen some small improvements in that area as well. Taken in total, we have cut the number of monthly service disruption hours by more than half, from disruptions occurring roughly 5.3% of the time, 5%, down to 2.5%. This is a great start, though we know that 2.5% is still far too high. This is, but there is some further nuance to this. Next slide, please. Though the total duration of disruptions declined significantly, the number of disruptions has not improved, and in some cases has gotten worse. We're seeing fewer severe disruptions that affect operations for a long time, but still a very high number of small disruptions, particularly with light rail vehicle issues. Often, for example, this can be as simple as a train needing to go out of service and passengers experiencing a 10-minute delay. However, we do want to note an important caveat here. Part of this increase is also due to our new alert system, which has been tracking smaller disruptions that would not have been recorded before, which can account for some, but not all of the increase. So one could say that we're approaching some of the limits of what we can achieve with quick near-term fixes, and that the highest impact improvements will take some time and investment, possibly. That's what we'll walk through next. Next slide, please. Again, as you may recall from December, Sound Transit commissioned an independent or a report by an external consultancy to advise on how we can and should be improving our operating systems to make it more reliable and more resilient. This report was just delivered to us last week in final form. And in the next few slides, we will summarize what it recommended and how we are applying that information now and into the future to take action. Next slide. This quote, operating systems resiliency assessment, end quote, was a very broad, comprehensive analysis, some of which we've already taken action on. But just as importantly, we are still unpacking other areas of opportunity as we digest that report. The majority of findings in that report are technical in nature across a range of areas and issues, and we have synthesized those into 6 areas. Asset management, which includes the practices and procedures we use to inspect and maintain our assets. Standards and procedures are the documents that prescribe what we design, how we build the system, and how we verify those assets. Long-range planning will initiate studies to identify changes to the system to adapt to things like climate change and ensure we have redundant utility connections. Our system's operational networks, that refers to the communication backbone that manages information between the many of the complex components we've been discussing with you, such as traction power, train control, signals, emergency ventilation and fire systems, automation and monitoring, and many more. Projects in construction includes how all these findings inform the new service we're bringing online in the years to come. So it's very tied to the work we currently do in the activation of new lines. And finally, operating partnership and organizational changes includes how Sound Transit is structured internally, as well as externally in relation to our operating partners. I'll now walk through each of these 6 categories to better unpack the recommendations and highlight just a few examples of work we will undertake to improve the systems. Next slide, please. By and large, most of the recommendations from the report fall into the first 2 categories from that last slide. So here you see asset management and standards and procedures. In the first category of asset management, the report includes 27 recommendations. One example would be to strengthen our asset management system. Having, for instance, a centralized digital asset management platform will make it easier to ensure good working condition of assets, schedule preventative maintenance, and better organize our spare parts inventory. This work should reduce the likelihood of asset failures and therefore of passenger disruptions. For standards and procedures, the report includes 18 recommendations. One example is performing a system-wide traction power study. And doing this analysis and modeling of the traction power and rail-to-ground systems will help us identify weaknesses that could cause faults and power loss. This study will provide insights into the traction power system so we can be more judicious in prioritizing our maintenance of the entire system and making sure that future extensions do not leave out lessons learned. We'll use this study to then revise our maintenance, inspection, and design standards to minimize the ground faults that have caused power outages and service disruptions. And I will note that we're going to be commencing this work very shortly. Next slide, please. The next category is operational networks, which included 6 recommendations. One high priority, high yield improvement would be to upgrade the legacy portions of our alignments to a Tier 3 network, which would provide redundant communication pathways. This is important because some parts of the central link system use a flat layer 2 architecture, meaning all devices like switches, stations, control units, and endpoints are on the same network with little or no separation. In addition, the core switches share a single data room at our central OMF and are over 15 years old and therefore prone to unpredictable behavior. Upgrading the network will ensure that we can continue to communicate and monitor the many other systems and the alignment that ensure passengers are safe and service is reliable. In the long-range planning category, the report included 12 recommendations. These activities would explore future improvements that could make our alignment more flexible and resilient down the road. This is similar to improving our standards and procedures, but these recommendations are more about looking for areas where we could retrofit the existing system, such as adding track crossovers. Track configuration improvements like these would have a big positive impact for our riders, because they would allow us to better isolate planned and unplanned maintenance work and reduce single tracking. This could also give us more options for storing and deploying gap trains as quickly as possible. I will say, however, that retrofitting in track crossovers in the operating environment is not to be taken lightly. It would be complex and potentially disruptive to operations. So as I said at the beginning, we do need some time to unpack and assess this recommendation. Next slide, please. The projects in construction category includes 5 recommendations. A representative example would be conducting more systems testing of new expansions using degraded conditions. The idea being that we could resolve issues before new stations and track carry passengers. This also allows our crews to have more time to focus on maintaining the system instead of troubleshooting problems once the assets are in operational service. I do want to note for the committee that we have already launched and incorporated this recommendation into the commissioning of the downtown Redmond Link extension, and of course, EastLink going forward. The 6th category of operational and organizational changes has 10 recommendations. One important example, which I will note is already well underway through the IGA update process that Russ explained, is more explicitly defining roles and decision-making responsibilities, which will increase accountability for both agencies. Assigning single points of accountability for each asset class will provide a clear forum for discussing priorities and evaluating trade-offs. This will increase clarity in reporting and actions, so we're efficiently responding when issues arise and creating the best possible experience for our passengers. Much of this is already underway through the internal reorganization that we experience here at Sound Transit, and also as we partner with King County Metro. So as you can see, we are, again, deeply evaluating each recommendation in the report and ensuring we take action in a meaningful way. Next slide, please. As we wrap up, I want to remind you of our timeline. This graphic summarizes some specifics of the timeline that Russ went through earlier. This shows an updated list of what we showed in December. with green check marks showing the work we have completed so far, like the systems assessment work that I just described, track cleaning, and brake fall training for operators. The items with yellow process symbols are currently underway. As of last week, on the 28th of February, we're pleased to announce that we're about 80% finished with the items that were originally prioritized in this category for Q1, shown here in the first and second columns. We now expect a few items to extend into April as they're still wrapping up, but there's good progress underway. Looking ahead to Q2 and beyond, in the two right-hand columns, you'll see a few items that have not yet begun. This is because they're sequential tasks, meaning they can only begin once the network review that is currently underway is complete, for instance. Next slide, please. So all to say that the work continues. We are applying a sense of urgency to this work as we develop detailed implementation plans as schedules and again unpack the recommendations in detail. We plan to return to you quarterly, at least quarterly, with more information as work progresses. So we would aim to be back in front of this committee with more progress at the end of Q2. And we also anticipate touching on this as part of the Rio metrics presentation as part of this committee meeting. Next slide, please. This concludes our presentation. Thank you, Chair Walker and committee members. We will be happy to take your input at this time.
Great. Thank you so much, team. A lot of great information, and I appreciate, as you said at the outset, that this built on what we got that big overview in December. So thank you. It feels like a ton has happened since then. So really impressed. What questions do we have for our staff? Go ahead, Board Member Bernie.
Thank you. I know there's more to come. And that was a lot to take in, just so you know. And I know it is for you as well, much more detail. A couple of things that, as you were presenting, made me think about. I appreciate the work that's been done initially. It feels like, and you can let me know if this is accurate, there's a level of intensity because we're having some, noticeable service interruptions, some things we could take care of. I'm curious if that intensity is really can be sustained in the long term. And so what does that mean for staffing and how we can continue on the right trajectory with that?
Thank you so much for that question. Certainly, there's a level of intensity. And one of the things that we have been talking about with CEO Sparman, as well as my colleagues, is to make sure that this becomes part of the way we do business. So we are also looking at staffing levels, making sure we have redundancy, resiliency in the human aspect as well. And I would note, and I would welcome Russ's input on this, there's been a lot of good work on the service delivery side of the house to make sure that we have the right structure in place. So we have dedicated teams, for instance, on different things, and not having everybody, for instance, really running at the same speed, say, progressing the same item. And Russ, is there anything that you would like to add?
No, I just want to echo that and a little bit of clarity. It is intense right now. I would tell you that even when you don't kind of see it or feel it, it's typically intense in operations to ensure that we can get back to standard operations. What Moises was saying is we're looking holistically at how we do staff this. So instead of for lack of a better way to describe, instead of everybody running to help, the right people are running to help so that we're not burning out everybody. We don't want to burn out anybody, actually, but we want to make sure that people are responding to their area of responsibility, have clear understanding of what they're responsible for, and can execute on it. And we believe will yield some benefit from that as well.
Thanks, Chair. I had one more question and a comment, but I see CEO Sparman was.
Chair Walker, thank you. So I have a quick additional comment to make on this, which is really more of a high level context. Sound Transit as an agency are changing, and everything we've experienced in the last year has driven home the fact that we are changing from being a capital delivery agency to one that equally much operates a very complex system. And that recognition that we are now a major operating agency, I think will also ensure that we maintain a high level of focus on how we operate the system going forward. So that's an important context to keep in mind as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Board Member Burney.
Yeah, I think that's a good follow-up. You were talking about your asset management system and changing it over to something more probably modern. I don't know if that's the right word, but my city is going through similar path. You're just under a probably more accelerated process from where you started to where you are now. And so things like that, I think in the report I'm understanding is that those are things we'll be keeping an eye on to ensure that we're putting in the right processes in place to keep up with where we are as an organization. I think that's CEO Sparman, the mention of the balancing of operation and capital delivery. So curious about, and you can maybe it's for next time, like how are we going to keep our eye on that moving forward? And then so maybe I'll just throw that out there and we can talk about it later because I think that will be a future discussion. But the other thing I would bring up is we've done things a particular way. For example, we have a relationship with King County Metro, and also for a future discussion is that the best model for how we operate, and if it's not, how do we kind of proceed in the future to thinking about it? So those are from this brief report. Those are the things that are kind of swimming in my head right now about how do we continue to make improvements so that we deliver the best service possible.
Thank you for that. And yeah, certainly those are two topics that we'll need to keep our eye on. And I don't know if CEO Sparman wants to add any additional remarks to the second point.
I will just refer back to, as I acknowledged earlier in my comments, that we are planning to bring back to this committee a discussion about how we're updating our intergovernmental agreement with King County Rail. It's clear that if we were to explore in the future a different operating model, that will take some time. So the new IGA, which the two agencies are working hand in hand to develop with the right KPIs and other things, will set the stage for the board in the future, if you so choose, to look at alternatives to the existing model.
Great, thank you, Jeroen and Board Member Burney. Other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Board Member Quinn.
I know this is my first committee meeting, but I usually like to jump right in.
Please do.
And this is more just because I read the minutes, but this is a very comprehensive assessment. And there are many parts. It's multi-tiered, right? You have the IGA, you have the resiliency work, you have the recommendations and implementation. So I'm hoping that this is an easy answer as we're thinking about our quarterly updates. Is it going to be this comprehensive? So for example, if I'm interested in the success of kind of staffing and it addresses the interruptions. So I'm just curious, and I guess this is a question of look ahead, going to be probably prepared to ask more questions, but just really what can we expect in the kind of quarterly reports?
So I'll take a stab at answering the quarterly reports and what to expect, and tell you I would not expect it to be this holistically comprehensive, though it may be comprehensive in specific aspects that we're making progress on. I would also indicate to you through the leadership of Chair Walker, this committee working with board admin does set the agenda, and you have the ability to indicate what you would like to have deeper dives on as we come back to you quarterly.
May I?
Great, thank you, Board Member Quinn. Whichever one of you
Chair
wants to
Walker,
go.
thank you. I'll be very quick. I also want to just add to what Russ just said, that we are always very happy to sit down with individual board members and have a more in-depth conversation as well outside the formal process. Just keep that in mind, that that's our job, to make sure you have the information that you need.
Anything else? Okay, great. Any other board members have questions for the team? I have a couple. I think I had a question on the IGA and the timeline. I think you answered that, and that's well in the works, hand in hand with King County Metro. That's great. Maybe to sort of point out the obvious, I think we have a major transition coming up in leadership. How will that happen? Where will we be in the IGA process there, and making, what are we putting in place to make sure that happens with the transition?
So that's a tricky question, but I will give it a shot. So the IGA is well in hand. We actually have a rough draft already. What I anticipate is that while I'm still in office over the next month and a half, that we'll actually sort of have a more of a final draft version of that IGA, which will be the basis for a joint presentation from the King County Rail Division. Evan, I think you're on the hook for that at our next RIO committee meeting. We're going to try to make that happen at the April RIO committee meeting. And then, of course, after that, I will pass the baton. But I think I can safely say that whoever the new CEO is, staff is very committed to continue to execute on that plan. And I think I'm speaking both for Sound Transit as an agency and King County Rail as a key partner in that effort.
Great, thank you for that. I think that, and we all know how important that is to making this whole thing work. So I really appreciate pushing the timeline on that. I just wanted to make a note, that slide on slide 9, and you gave that to us in December as well. I believe firmly that board members should stay in the policy lane. This is not my area of expertise, but it is important that I understand this, and this is really helpful. So I appreciate that and appreciate how many different pieces you all are dealing with this, as has been said many times, how complex this is. So thank you for including that, even though I will not be a technical trained engineer or any of those pieces. I appreciate understanding it. I had one sort of weirdly specific question on the operational networks. You made the note that the desire to upgrade, or the recommendation to upgrade network configuration from tier 2 to tier 3. And I don't know if you said this. Is that where do the tiers come from? Is that a transit specific or a train specific term? Is that a power term? What is that?
I will do my best to answer that question for you, but I am not the best person probably actually in the room to answer that question for you. And we'll get a comprehensive answer back to you and the rest of the RIO committee. That is about levels of redundancy and how resilient that network can be. So we currently have a design tier 2 network that's a mesh network that has some level of resiliency and redundancy. The feeling is that we need to up that to a tier 3 that has more of a fiber backbone, double redundancy, and split out so everything, as Moises was saying, isn't on kind of one thing. Best way to maybe think about it is you could plug a whole lot of things into one socket. It probably doesn't work really well. You should plug them into multiple sockets to distribute the load. That's kind of what we need to do. We need to move it from being into one to be bifurcated so that if one fails, we have backup.
Thank you. That's helpful. And then the follow-up to that is there a cost? Is that there like a system upgrade cost to that, or is it, and is that a hard physical cost or something?
Yes.
Something else, I guess.
Yes, and I think, thank you for that question. I think we spoke to this also earlier this year, or it may have been at the end of the year. We are already working with the consulting community to take on that evaluation. So this is something that we could focus on in the next update, so we can provide a little more information about that assessment.
Great. Sure.
But to be clear about your question, yes, there will be a cost. There are some general software updates we could do, but if we want to, say, design with more fiber and we don't have the amount of fiber we need, we'll have to do an extra fiber pole. That will be a cost, and there will be some work to do. So we do anticipate that having a cost. We're going to come back to you with an analysis, working with our inside team and the consultant to make a recommendation for the best network to achieve our results and the best way forward, most cost-effective way forward to realize those results.
Great, thank you. That's helpful. Go ahead, Drew.
So I find myself chiming in here more than I usually do, so I apologize for that. Just a quick comment. Money matters. We all know that. And I think the reality that we need to be free and acknowledge up front, which is a lot of these improvements that you've heard discussed both in examples and when you look at the complete list, will drive costs higher. We are actually right now exploring how much are we carrying within our long-range financial budget for, I'm going to call it a state of good repairs, to make sure we maintain ourselves where we need to be. My expectation is that the cost will go higher, whether it's the network issues, crossovers, it's a long list. We will try to be as transparent as we possibly can be with the board ahead of time before we commit to those expenses, so you know what they are, but they will cost more money.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I know, cost analysis is a future part of this, but that's helpful in just sort of understanding the types of things that we're going to be looking at. I appreciate that. All right. Well, I do want to say thank you for all the work that has been done to date. It's really nice to see those response numbers, the hours go down, that we're making improvements there. So a lot of good progress, I think, and we are looking forward to more presentations. And I will work with you all on the committee to figure out what we do want to go deep on at this committee, or which presentations we'd like to see first, what's important. So look for an email from me coming up to ask that question. All right, thank you. Okay, we have a couple more presentations. I'm going to move on to our Fair Ambassador update. We have Marie Olson, our Passenger Experience Executive Director, and Tanya Stark today, our Passenger Success Acting Deputy Director, with our presentation.
All right, good afternoon, Chair Walker and committee members. Today we'll be providing a brief quarterly update on the Fair Engagement Program. Next slide, please. This will include an update on the FAIR resolutions, assault data, and projects and priorities. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, here we go. On the slide, you can see the non-payment numbered interactions on the far left column, and directly to the right of that, you can see that citation count. As always, the citation counts for the first and second interactions are highest because passengers who fail to disclose their identity never move out of those categories because that citation is non-attributable. Next slide, please. On this slide, we can see the number of resolutions that were completed in column 3, as well as what those resolution pathways were in column 4. Next slide, please. The safety of our frontline team is always a top concern for our leadership team, and we want everyone to finish their shift and return home safely to their loved ones. Ensuring that we collect data and look into incidents to identify these possible mitigations, such as additional training, is an important tool that we utilize to try and keep our team safe. Next slide, please. Bottom line, from the data we have available, it does appear that all categories of assaults are trending lower. The data we use are gathered from reports made to the Security Operations Center, the SOC, as well as our internal Fair Ambassador event reporting. So back in October 2023, the SOC created specific call types to try and capture that data that were specific to assaults against transit workers. This data captured by the SOC includes assaults against Fair Ambassadors, security, facilities, and operators if it is reported to the SOC. So the 3 specific call types we looked at for the graph we'll see on the next slide are assault transit worker physical, which means that physical contact was made. And then we have assault transit worker verbal, which means verbal threats were made towards the Fair Ambassador, and assault transit worker physical aggression, which means that physical intimidation, such as advancing towards the Fair Ambassador or displaying aggressive gestures like kicking or punching at the train. Next slide, please. This slide here depicts the number of assaults by type against Fair Ambassadors from October 2023 to February 2025. Physical assaults are seen there in red, verbal assaults in blue, and physical aggression with no physical contact is in green there. So for February 2025, 2 verbal threats, 1 physical aggression, and 0 physical assaults for February. Next slide, please. And just to back up here for a second, so our goal is always to continue to see that reduction in assaults against the Fair Ambassadors until all of those lines on that graph hit 0 there. Our employees and passengers deserve to work and ride in a safe, clean, harassment-free environment, and we are committed to that.
Yeah, I just want to jump in real fast. I asked Tanya to pull the number on assaults because employee safety is obviously our top priority. We have moved with Project Most security over with our front line. We're already seeing some huge benefits just in communications from security being there. Wouldn't say alongside the Fair Ambassadors, but in close proximity and building relationships. So as we're pushing all the folks out, onto the alignment, they feel safer, and the results are showing. They weren't huge to begin with, and as far as assaults, but they are reducing. So I'm really proud to see the team, how we've all kind of come together just in the last few months and made it a safer environment for everybody.
Thanks for that, Marie. And just to throw in an impromptu comment there as well, yesterday we had a training with our FAST team, which is our Field Activity Specialist team, internal to Sound Transit. They went out with groups of fare ambassadors just to do station familiarization, to show them just situational awareness, like talk about where the emergency exits are, how do we egress a station effectively if you feel trapped, and all of those things. And the feedback that we got from the team was overwhelmingly positive, that they really enjoyed that training. It gave them more confidence when they're out there. So we're looking to continue additional trainings and partnerships with our security team moving forward. All right, so a couple of updates on the Fare Ambassador app and platform inspections to close out our presentation today. So it's become clear that the current FA app that we had been using is not meeting the data collection that the needs of our team. So the reliability of the data is not consistent. Things were not transmitting back correctly, so we weren't getting an accurate capture of all of the numbers of inspections that were done that the fare ambassadors were reporting. So we stopped at this time using that app and moved to a more reliable but a temporary fix until a more permanent solution can be implemented there. So next steps are working with IT support to quickly move forward with a permanent fix, which we are doing at this time. And platform inspections, the team has been increasing the frequency of platform inspections to an average of 6 to 8 per week. Before we were doing 1 to 2 platform inspections a week. And platform inspections are that newer set of procedures that allow the fare ambassadors to conduct those inspections both on platforms and on board trains. So depending on the location, ridership, time of day, and other variables, this really gives us some flexibility to shift our staff around from one to the other. And platform inspections also improve the overall passenger experience, as staff can assist passengers with paying their fares before they board the train, in addition to other services such as ADA support and wayfinding. Next slide, please. And that concludes our briefing, pending any questions.
Great, thank you so much. And since we do have 2 new committee members, I will just say how much I enjoyed the ride-alongs I've done with fare ambassadors, and encourage you both to do that. They do amazing work, and it really helps understand the system and what they're experiencing out there. Tanya, you mentioned the FAST team. Can you remind me what that acronym is?
Yes, Field Activity Specialist team. So they are an internal team within what used to be public safety, and they're like critical incident response. So they're the ones that are going out there if there's a critical incident that's occurring.
Great, thank you. What questions do we have for staff today? Go ahead, Board Member Burney.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I appreciate it. Over just a little over a year now being on the board, so it's starting to kind of all come together about, the presentations over time. There was a slide on, I don't have a page number. It was right before additional updates, and you had the physical assaults, verbal assaults, physical aggressions, no contact. And if I read this correctly, and no assault is okay. So I'm prefacing it with that, but these are actual numbers of assaults, like 2, 4, 6, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, and like I said, no assault is okay. However, it's hard to get a context for like how many operators there are on the job at a time when these happen, or how many hours or rides or whatever, to give a context to how often this is happening. And I think that would be helpful to tell the story that the system is quite safe, but there are issues that we're dealing with. I think this, if you just saw this without the numbers, it would look really scary. And I also, want to make sure we can recruit operators as well. So I want to make sure we're pushing out the right information with that. And I guess the other thing I would say is I appreciate all the work that's being done. Do you foresee what we need to do in the future to ensure that our operators are safe? Like, what are some of the steps that we're continue to take with that?
So for our fare ambassadors, I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify, fare ambassadors different data from the operators, like train operators.
Okay.
So this is specific just to the fare
This
ambassadors.
is just, oh, I'm sorry, this is just fare ambassadors.
Just fare ambassadors.
Okay, so same kind of data, but for the fare ambassadors then, as we kind of pull all this together. So,
Yes.
but yes, how, what do we continue to do? I know you're doing a lot of training and things like that, but I want to make sure that we continue, just like with the previous presentation, that we're being more proactive in how we manage all these things to ensure safety.
Nope, absolutely. So every time there's an incident, we're going to look into that incident, see what happened, see if any other actions could have been taken. So really just deep diving into what we could do differently. And I think that's going to be a huge part of how we move forward here, is studying what the cause is or why this happened. And also moving off of trains a bit into these platform inspections has increased the safety overall. When you look at a crush load train or a train that's very full, there's very little room to maneuver on that train. We're waking people up. There's other instances that we're getting into that we're trying to step away from to increase the safety of the fare ambassadors while they're still able to engage the passengers before they even get onto the train.
Great, thank you. And sorry for my confusion. I took the bus in today, so in my mind, it's all the same situation, but thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Bernie. And to your point, this is a quarterly presentation for the new board members. Board Member George, go ahead.
Thank you. Like Board Member Quinn, my first committee meeting, so thank you. Lot to learn and really interesting, lots of good data. One thing I'm curious about, the seeing seasonal comparisons, summer versus summer. I would assume you'd have fewer incidents in February versus July. And I say that I work professionally, I work in parks. We see lots more activity in the warm weather months when everyone's out in the parks. So of course, we're going to see more bad behavior when more people are out and about. So I'm just from a comparison standpoint, I'd love to see that in the future and just compare those seasons. Otherwise, this is really interesting and y'all are doing great work. So I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Board Member George. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you as always for being here. And thank you to all the ambassadors for their great work. We're going to move on to our next presentation, which is the Passenger Impact Program. Pamela Wren, our Link Right-of-Way Access Program Manager, is here to provide a presentation. Pamela, is that a new title since last time you were here?
I think that stems from Project Most. So,
okay.
Thank you. All right. Good afternoon, Chair Walker and committee members. My name is Pam Wren, and I'm here today to report on the Passenger Impact Program to the committee. Next slide. The intent of this program is to ensure that service for our riders remains a priority. We balance the need for construction with service to passengers by working closely with our partners in operations and passenger experience to minimize the impact of planned disruptions on our riders. This includes packaging as much work as possible into individual planned closures and scheduling them at times when they'll have fewer impacts. We also fit emerging work such as resiliency improvements into the calendar. Today's report will provide an update on the series of major disruptions currently underway, and then we'll discuss a couple of major disruptions being planned for Q2. Next slide. The graphic presented on this slide shows the work that was underway during January and February of 2025. Due to reasons we'll discuss, the work has crept into March. The brighter blue line shows where we are today. There are three major efforts, which I will mention in turn, starting from the bottom line of the graphic. As the presentation continues, I'll discuss each in more detail. First, the Pinehurst Station project continues to apply roofing materials until March 9th. Second, in the middle of the graphic, the Eastlink project has completed their tie-in work for now, but will need another weekend in late spring or summer to finish up testing, not on the critical path. Finally, shown on the same line as Eastlink work is a set of maintenance projects which we performed on Sunday, February 23rd. And you can see it labeled there, resiliency package. I'll discuss each of those in turn as we move along. At the top of the graphic, you can see a diamond representing the UW power work that was completed in the first weekend of February. This work was completed successfully as discussed in the last RIO report. Next slide. I'd like to start by reviewing the Pinehurst Station roofing work that started January 4th. Continuing weather impacts, including ice and wind, caused this work to extend beyond the original end date of February 27th. The new completion date is March 9th. During this work, at Pinehurst, riders are being served by single tracking from 5:30 p.m. to close of service on Monday through Friday, and several full weekends of single tracking. Next slide. Next, I'd like to turn to the continuation of the two-line tie into the downtown tunnel. The last weekend's closure from February 14th to 16th was successful, and the tunnel was open to service as expected on Monday morning, February 17th. The intention was to complete the work during the weekend of February 28th. However, underlying traction power communications issues related to the existing system, discovered during one of the January weekend disruptions, is still unresolved despite the best efforts of multiple teams. This is preventing the Eastlink project from closing out the final traction power testing. While this work is delayed, it is not on the critical path. Due to this situation, this work has been tentatively moved into Q2, and we'll discuss this later in the presentation. Next slide. I wanted to report on one other effort that was shown on the timeline, which is the resiliency work that the team performed in the downtown tunnel on February 23rd. This is the first time we've done a closure of this type to package and accelerate multiple efforts that would ordinarily be done over a much longer period during non-revenue hours. We believe that one-off closures of this type yield long-term operational benefits to riders despite their significant impacts. In this case, teams completed tunnel fiber and sewer surveys, which were performed above the OCS, the contact wires, and in the trackway. Next slide. This graphic shows the bus shuttle service that we've been using for all of our Operation Chili service disruptions. This model will stay the same for the rescheduled Eastlink weekend in Q2 or whenever it does get rescheduled. The transit tunnel will be closed between Capitol Hill and Soto stations, and buses will be running on 10 to 15-minute headways with train service to the north and south. Next slide. This slide shows a graphical representation of service disruptions coming up. We're also showing major community events that we're trying to avoid, such as the Club World Cup and World Cup games. So we're going to focus on the orange bars there in March, April, and May. Next slide. Looking ahead to Q2, we have scheduled work to complete the Pinehurst Station stairwells. The stairwells on one side of the station are in close proximity to the overhead catenary system, and work must be completed while the wires are powered down. The same single tracking configuration that's currently being used for roofing will be put into place to complete the stairwell work. The impact will occur from March 24th to April 13th, and again from April 26th to May 30th, with the break in the middle used to complete the next project we'll discuss. Next slide. As I mentioned during the last RIA report, we've been searching for the optimal time to replace a segment of rail in the southbound bore of the downtown tunnel. This section has broken several times recently, and each time an unplanned service disruption has been needed to execute a temporary repair and put the rail back into service. The goal now is to replace the rail before Eastlink service starts later this year. The team has approved this work to be performed between April 14th and 23rd, which avoids several major weekend events. Operations during this period will be challenging. To the north and south of downtown, train service will remain close to normal. Between Linwood and Westlake stations, headways will be 12 minutes. The same will be true between Angle Lake and Stadium stations. However, in the downtown core, headways will be from 25 to 30 minutes, even during weekday peak hours. Passengers desiring a through trip between Westlake and Stadium will be required to make 2 transfers. Understanding the significant impacts of this work on passengers, we are working hard on ways to take care of them during this period. I'll report more on our plans at the next RIO meeting. Next slide. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the Eastlink project still has to complete some testing that was delayed from January. This work has been postponed until the team indicates that the ability to test has been restored. However, the delay to the work will not cause a delay to the start of pre-revenue service. And that's that last bullet there. It says TBD. And so we're waiting to schedule that until the resumption of testing is available. Next slide. To conclude, we are presently fully engaged in completing the Operation Chili work safely despite weather impacts. We'll be partnering with STEP to implement continuous improvements to passenger service during upcoming impacts. We'll also be working on details of Q2 service impacts. Finally, we'll also continue to work on future impacts, and we'll present more details as usual at upcoming RIO meetings. Next slide. Thanks for your time. I'll be happy to take questions.
Great, thank you so much. And for our new board members, this is a monthly presentation that we requested, not only for our own information, but just so that there's a place that this gets out to the public on a really regular basis. Board Member Frizzell, go ahead.
So that's what I wanted to just make everybody aware of. I'm not sure it's getting out to the public. I'm not sure how information from the city of Linwood gets out to the public, because so many people say, but I didn't know. And so I get a number of writers that are unhappy. So I don't know what we can do to beef up getting information out to the public. I just know that it's not happening all the way yet. And there's so many things that come at us in a day. I don't know how to fix that. I'm just projecting it.
Thank you, Board Member Pamela or Russ. Do you want to talk about that?
Thank you. It is difficult. There is a lot that comes at all of us in a day. And it is a good reminder, though, Board Member Frizzell, that we are probably due for another enhanced campaign for people to sign up for our writer alerts. It's the best way for them to get information. And we can, especially in our new section in Snohomish County, for those new writers that are taking advantage of that service, they may have not realized they can sign up for specific writer alerts. So I'll work with our communications team to talk about how we do an emphasis there to remind people that signing up for service alerts is the best way to get information about how your service could be impacted.
Okay, thank you. I have signed up for service alerts and I get them maybe a little too many, but we're working on that system wide. Okay, just saying.
Thank you, Board Member Frizzell. I also feel like my inbox is filled with a lot of alerts, which I like, but it's sometimes a lot. Go ahead, Board Member Bernie.
I concur. I always appreciate the updates on this to give us kind of a context and help the public understand what's going to be happening and why. I had the opportunity to go with a couple of other board members and visit the work that happened in the tunnel to connect the electrical from Eastlink to the main system. And I just want to say how, the tour was really cool, and it was so wonderful to see it in real life versus just on a flat map or plan. So that was really great. But also the experience of seeing how you were bus bridging individuals. And it was a Saturday morning, a few weeks ago. It was not very warm, but the amount of traffic of people, getting on and off the buses and the trains, and your team or the teams of Sound Transit who helped guide people and were extremely attentive to help people maneuver through that, because it was a little, it's a little hard when you just think you're going to get on a train and get to the airport or get home from the airport. So a lot of luggage, a lot of people. But it was such a great experience to really see that in action, and the signage. I mean, I think that I hope that you get good feedback from the community as well when the normal system is disrupted, but we're doing our best to really help get people through that as easily as possible. But it was really impressive. Thank you. I feel the same way when I go out there as an ambassador, and you can really understand what people are experiencing for sure. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Board Member Bernie. And I will just again request to staff, if there is a campaign to get people signed up, send it our way as well so we can put it out on our channels. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you so much, Pamela. We'll see you next month. We have one final presentation, and that is our REO metrics. This one says right on the front that it's a monthly presentation. We do mix it up, so it's not the same data every month. So new board members, let me know if there's anything specific you would like to see. And I will turn it over to you, Raj, our Essential Data and Analytics Director.
Thank you, Chair Walker and committee members. I'm Raj Cheriel, Director of Enterprise Data and Analytics in Sound Transit's Agency Oversight Department. Thank you for the opportunity to use this portion of the agenda to present to you the passenger performance metrics. As always, feel free to jump in at any time with questions or observations. Next slide. This month, we will provide our year in review. We will be focusing on what a look at metrics across the whole of 2024 tells us about our performance. As you will see, this presentation covers all the services that represent the movement of people, including statistics related to each of the 4 modes, our vertical transportation system, and parking availability. Today's presentation is for informational purposes only, and no action is requested from the committee. Next slide. I went into detail about ridership at last month's presentation, so I'm not going to go into too much depth on boarding counts now. At the February meeting, I talked about the seasonality and mentioned that each year tends to follow a similar pattern. Growth from September to October, a drop from October to November, and then a further drop in December. At the time, we didn't have December data. We do now, and it does follow the expected seasonal pattern. I would like to note that despite a significant drop in weekday boardings from the prior month, the December 2024 figure represents a 10% increase over December 2023. The annual total ridership for Sound Transit services climbed above 42 million in 2024, making it the 5th highest year ever in terms of ridership for Sound Transit. Next slide, please. This chart and the one that follows provides insight into crowding by showing passenger loads during representative months before and after the opening of the Linwood Link extension. This chart focuses on July 2024. As a reminder, there are between 70 and 74 seats in each Link car. I've highlighted with an orange box those stations and those times of day in which, on average, someone boarding a Link vehicle would be unable to find a seat. Next slide. This slide shows the same information as the previous slide, but covers October of 2024. As the committee can see, the number of stations and periods of time in which, on average, Link passengers would struggle to find a seat have grown significantly. I'd like to remind the committee that Sound Transit's adopted service standards and performance measures document defines crowded as instances where standing passengers exceed 2 times the number of seats. Thus far, we are nowhere near that. However, I'd like to point out that these bars show average vehicle loads. Some trains during any specific hour may have more or fewer passengers than others, and it is possible that even the cars in a single train may differ significantly in how full they are. Further, passengers may feel like a train is crowded, even when the number of passengers is below the defined threshold. The key takeaway here is that as Sound Transit expands, overall ridership will grow, passenger loads on the current system will increase, and while we are below what we define as overcrowded, our passengers may experience what they feel are crowded trips. Next slide. Earlier in this meeting, during the resiliency presentation, you heard about some of the struggles we've faced meeting our trip delivery and on-time performance targets on Link. This slide shows our trip delivery performance, detailing the percentage of both missed and partial trips. As the committee learned, one result of our efforts to send replacement trains is that our passengers may not realize when we miss trips. Partial trips, however, are more problematic for our passengers as they result in the need to deboard and reboard in order to complete their trip. I'd note that the months in which missed and partial trips were highest, such as January, February, and December, were also months in which we saw a large number of service disruptions. Minimizing these disruptions will be key to improving our performance on these metrics. Next slide. This slide shows Link's on-time performance. As with trip delivery, a customer who sees a train arrive at their station at the expected time, even though it is not the specific train scheduled, may not realize the trip was not on time under our definition. Again, the bigger issue from a customer perspective is the partial trips that result in a passenger's journey being interrupted or delayed. Next slide. This slide shows our ST Express partners' performance in operating the amount of service scheduled. The adopted target in Sound Transit service standards and performance measures has our partners operating 99.8% of scheduled trips. In discussions with our partners, we found the primary cause of missed trips is insufficient personnel, which relates closely to the three things that stand out in this chart. First, the improvement that Community Transit made since the early part of the year as a result of increased operator and mechanic labor resources. Second, the struggles King County Metro had to maintain a full complement of drivers and mechanics at its east base, causing the drop from July through October. And third, following an emergency reduction of 10% of Pierce Transit's trips in March 2024 and a number of newly hired drivers, the steady increase to the point where Pierce Transit met its trip delivery target for the first time in years in October. Next slide. ST Express on-time performance numbers, as shown in this slide, have remained fairly consistent throughout the year. The service standards set the target at 85%. As this chart shows, Community Transit met that target every month last year, while King County Metro met it every month but one. Pierce Transit, on the other hand, was approaching the target near the start of the year, with its performance tailing off as the year wore on. I spoke about personnel with regards to trip delivery, but it impacts on-time performance as well. Pierce Transit hired many new operators in 2024, and it's not uncommon to see variability in travel times as new operators become accustomed to their route and traffic conditions. With Pierce Transit service now stabilized, we'll continue to assess their performance in 2025 before considering adjustments to run times to help that agency achieve its on-time performance targets. Next slide. This slide shows Sounder service metrics. Missed trips are shown by that thin gray bar at the top of each month. Sound Transit's adopted service standards and performance measures sets the operated as scheduled target for Sounder at 99.5%, and Sounder met that target in July, September, October, and December. It set its on-time performance target at 95%, and Sounder has achieved this all but 3 months in 2024. Next slide. This chart describes fleet availability for our T-Line service. Fleet availability is a critical metric which has the potential to affect the delivery of scheduled trips on this service. However, despite dipping into the mid-80s from March through June, T-Line experienced few impacts to service. The actual count of T-Line vehicles is small, so taking even a single train out of service has a big effect on the fleet availability percentage. The March through June drop in availability is primarily attributable to one vehicle being out of service with mechanical issues from the end of February through mid-July. Next slide. This slide shows the distribution of T-Line boardings across its various stations. Normally, we'd expect to see a large proportion of the boardings at the terminus stops, and that is certainly the case for the Tacoma Dome station and to some extent the St. Joseph stop. However, 3 other stations see a large proportion of boardings, including Union Station, which serves the University of Washington Tacoma campus, and the Theater and Stadium District stations, which serve large numbers of high school students. Next slide. Vertical transportation systems remain vital for moving people from place to place in their transit journey. Sound Transit has made impressive strides in improving the performance of its vertical transportation systems over the past few years, resulting in less downtime for passengers. Looking at the whole of 2024, Sound Transit met its vertical transportation availability targets for every set of systems except for those in the downtown tunnel, in which we've fallen about a percentage point short. The improvement we've seen in this area over prior years is directly attributable to the program's focus on improving performance through the use of data. In fact, outages for mechanical repair and scheduled maintenance, the 2 types of outages over which the agency has the most control, accounted for only about 2% of the outages in the downtown tunnel in 2024, with misuse, vandalism, power outages, accidents, and environmental repairs making up the remaining. Next slide. This slide shows our parking utilization. As the committee can see, our longer operating stations like Angle Lake, Tukwila International Boulevard, and Northgate garages push up the overall utilization rate, though it probably won't be long until the garages along our link extensions see higher utilization rates as well. Next slide. I know that was a great deal of data and I just shared, and hopefully I provided some useful insights as well. As I close this presentation, I want to share 3 themes that I walked away with from this review. First, recovery to response to refinement. In some ways, 2024 felt like the year we could move beyond managing the impacts of the pandemic and start to adjust our operations to meet the current operating environment. And over the coming years, we expect to fine-tune these operations to improve our performance in each of these areas. Second, expansion, and more expansion coming. The extensions to Link and the T-Line systems have had a profound impact on the number of people we serve, as well as our ability to continue to operate our systems productively, efficiently, and effectively. This will be a recurring issue as we continue to expand. And third, data has a role in continuous performance improvement. Our vertical transportation program has provided a model for becoming better in every service we provide. And as that happens, I'm looking forward to returning to this committee to share our progress. With that, I'll end the presentation and happily answer any questions you may have.
Raj, thank you so much. And I am just delighted to see so much green on that vertical transportation slide. That is really great work. So thank you. And thank you to my colleagues. I know we voted on a number of things that invested in that area. So it's really nice to see that pay off. Any questions for Raj on this data? Go ahead, Board Member Quinn.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I just want to thank you for your thoroughness, because I had some questions beforehand, but you answered them, especially on the chart where you see February and March. I thought you did a good job of explaining that information, because I was like, okay, what's driving up the partial trips? And you lean right into it. So thank you.
Thank you. Board Member George, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a quick one. Again, great information. I was curious on the bus performance in the 3 systems, and particularly Pierce Transit. You mentioned that they're having trouble and not making the standard. And I just was curious, having done that route now a few times, is how much is traffic the issue? Are there just more people on the roads and in that HOV lane? And you indicated that at some point you will consider changing the route times and whatnot. So could you just speak a little more to that? I'm just curious about what's and beyond the operator shortage. I'm definitely familiar with the issues they were having there.
Yeah, some research I've recently seen placed the issues around on-time performance about 70% on drivers and about 30% on traffic conditions. Okay. So you're absolutely right. Traffic conditions has a big issue on-time performance. And we do, as we try to create travel times for those routes, take into account traffic conditions and the variability thereof. The South Corridor, in which Pierce Transit service travels, tends to be more congested than most of the other corridors, and that might be why you see that variability impacting on-time performance on a regular basis. The other thing we think in that case is we may need to adjust travel times to recognize some of the variability, but at the same time, we don't want to drastically change schedules so that they don't represent the normal trip.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. It was really interesting.
Great. Thank you, Board Member George. Any other questions? Yeah, Board Member Verney.
Just a quick comment. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward on your parking utilization to see the Marymore Village Garage be part of this as well. And I think you already have the Redmond Technology Station Garage, which doesn't have great utilization yet, but I have a feeling those will start getting utilized more.
Yeah, I agree that's been the pattern. We've seen the growth in parking utilization at every new facility as they've come on board.
Great, thank you so much. And as it's related, I think, to that, the ST Express routes that Board Member George brought up, I am excited to be able to announce that 590 series, one of the routes that Pierce Transit operates, will be back up to service that we had to cut previously in this next service change at the end of this month. So very excited to be able to bring that back. As Board Member George mentioned, a big part of that was the driver shortage. And so we are happy to say we're fully staffed with drivers at Pierce Transit now, so we're able to operate that again. It's a very welcome addition to those of us commuting from Tacoma and Pierce County. Any other business to come before the committee today? All right, seeing none, our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 3rd at 1 p.m. here in the Ruth Fisher Boardroom and virtually via Zoom. The link to join the meeting virtually will be provided on the Sound Transit website as well as on the meeting agenda. Thank you all for being here, and we stand adjourned.